And you can see it just kind of moves along to the north and then finally goes inland just about there and then emerges off the northern end of the coast. And the latest photograph we have is as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. We don't have the 4 o'clock photograph in. At 5 o'clock, we'll get that a little bit later.
Havana. And once again, it's moving on toward the west-northwest to northwest now at about 15 miles an hour. We'll go back a few hours when the center at this time had just begun to emerge from the north coast of Cuba. These pictures are taken about a half-hour apart, and as we go through them, you can see the eye gradually beginning to come up over the open water of the Gulf of Mexico. By this time, you can see that it is clearly out over the open water, and we expect this path to more or less continue throughout the night and into tomorrow. Now, I hate to tell you, but you folks up here in northern Gulf Coast...
motion of this, and that is pretty much the way the storms are moving. There are some thunderstorms in there indicated by the red and the yellow, and then the green and the blue, just a wide area of rainfall, scattered showers over Dade, Broward County. Take a look again at that satellite picture, and we'll show you that the eye of the storm is over just to the north, I should say, of...
Dr. Frank, tell us more about Kate's turn to the north.
Well,
what does that mean to Key West?
Okay, now it really isn't a turn to the north. It's a turn to the west-northwest, a gradual turn. So we're not talking about some kind of an abrupt right-hand turn back into Key West. We've had some very strong squalls, though, move into Key West and the lower Keys, and they've had some forces, some wind forces to almost hurricane, well, to 100 miles an hour in a couple of cases. But it's turned into the west-northwest. We expect it to gradually turn to the northwest sometime tomorrow and move up into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, where it's going to be a threat to somebody else.
She will gather strength out there over the water as well, will she not?
Oh, yes, and we've already had indications from that, from the Air Force plane, that finally has been able to get back into the storm so that the winds have regained some of the strength it lost as it come across the Cuban coast. I must point out, though, that it held together very well, and it really didn't lose a lot of strength as it moves west along the coastline.
Alluding to something you just mentioned, you do pretty much expect this storm now to head up to the Gulf Coast states and probably strike land somewhere along in there?
Well, we're not sure just exactly where. We're going to evaluate how much of the storm is left as we get continuing report from the Air Force plane tonight, and then evaluate what kind of a threat and where that threat's going to be as we move on into tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr.
Radar picture now and show you what's happening. These are the heaviest showers right now. Some very heavy thunderstorms around the upper Keys, lesser down to the lower Keys, but they're going to be increasing because all this is going to be moving in that direction. Now, as far as the East Coast is concerned, we're going to be slowly getting out of it. And by tomorrow, even though there's still going to be enough moisture to produce some showers around, you might see some sunshine tomorrow. The West Coast probably will be in it for another day, and the Keys are going to be wet again tomorrow. After that, as it makes
a viewpoint here, and from out in space, obviously not very pretty for those along the Cuban coast, because that's the area that was hardest hit. At 5 o'clock this afternoon, the eye still very clearly visible, now beginning to move a little bit more toward the north, and that's going to retard the clearing here in South Florida. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, here's the way the radar looks, some showers to the north. But look at all this over the Keys. Every 15 minutes, watch as the radar continues to pick up the showers. You can see the curvature of the band here around the eye of the storm to the southwest of Key West, and the rains just continue and they keep coming. If anything, this whole thing is drifting farther to the north. I want to show you the live radar picture and where they are right now. Heavy, heavy storms moving into South Dade County, the upper Keys, not so much anymore in the lower Keys, but we're going to get a lot of rain in South Florida tonight, and wind too. Our forecast for the boaters.
Boats were torn from their anchors. Coastal roads quickly flooded over. Hundreds of residents fled to the safety of evacuation shelters. Ran out of the most basic supplies.
To reorganize and strengthen as it heads into the Gulf of Mexico. Residents throughout the Gulf states are being told to take precautions, for no one knows.
Away. On Key West, youngsters went out to play despite waves that crashed over the seawalls and caused local flooding. Some boats were swamped as winds of gale force extended 300 miles north of the storm center. Forecasters say there's still a chance that Kate might turn northward and pose a danger.
Now, we'll put it just to the east. This is just about noon Eastern time. And as we move through about an hour at a time, you can see it slowly moves off the coast. You can just about follow the eye until we get back to our current picture, which puts it just about to the due north.
The path of Kate from now on will be somewhere, the most likely area from Louisiana over to the northern Florida coast. So that will happen probably in the next day or two. We're going to follow this twice as it goes through the path here. You can see the storm and comes off the northern coast of Cuba. I'm going to back it up and show you again. Watch as the eye kind of rolls across the northern coast over Havana, then jogs a little bit to the north and is now west of Key West, Florida. So all the heavy rains are going along with it tonight. We're going to go back and show you a radar sequence. This is kind of neat. From 3 o'clock this afternoon, all the oranges and the yellows of the heavy rains. Look at the spiral band. You can see the curvature around the eye of the storm, and this is moving through the area, then moving to the west about 40 miles per hour, the individual showers. It appears to be tapering off a little bit. Let's go to the live radar picture. We'll see what it looks like right now. Indeed, that is true. Not too much heavy rain anymore down to the southeast of us. Most of the heavy stuff is now off to the west, and even the Keys are beginning.
Moved into Cuba last night, now has come over the open Gulf waters, is intensifying some, almost as strong now as it was last night, and continues to intensify, so it may equal the wind speed, and that got up to 110 miles an hour, right on the verge of becoming classified as a major hurricane. You can see the swirl of clouds affecting the entire southern half of Florida, and especially along the lower Keys and up the southwest coast. They're certainly feeling the effects of it, even though the hurricane is a long way away. You can see on the plotting map how far away it is from the southwestern coast of Florida, but still the circulation around it is causing some real strong thunderstorms and even some wind gusts to 60 miles an hour at Key West. The central pressure at 970 millibars is Florida's feeling right now. Earlier today, it moved over, the eye moved just about over Havana, and winds were gusting to over 100 miles an hour in some sections of Cuba. And as the eye got offshore, there were some places in Key West getting 80 to 100 mile an hour winds. But now, as you can see quite clearly on the radar sequence, the eye moving pretty much away from Key West, and so conditions continue to improve.
Strengthen. We're going to show you the latest stats in just a second here. Here is that well-defined eye of Kate as it moves to the west-northwest, creating a lot of rough seas and hurricane-force winds in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's moving west-northwest now at speeds of 15 to 20 miles per hour of the feet as it went over Cuba, over Havana. As it moved off, it began to intensify again up to about 100, 105 knots, and now the latest advisory 110. You can see it moving pretty rapidly out into the Gulf. These pictures were taken every 2 hours, by the way, and as it continues on its journey out to sea, the gale force winds have begun to let up over the Keys, but still kind of gusty there. So again, here's the latest.
Staten Island! And a big happy birthday to Dorothy over there, who admits to being 93 years young. She sent me a lovely letter. Have many more, Dorothy. Here's the eye of another girl, a lot meaner than Dorothy. This is Kate. Can't trust those Kates, let me tell you. She's moving northwest at about 15 miles an hour. She's going to shift to more northerly, and she's packing winds of 120 miles per hour. Incredible. The storm probably will intensify to a magnitude of a level 4 hurricane by late this afternoon. That means winds greater than 130 miles an hour. I'm predicting intensification. Timing, probably very late tomorrow night or early Friday morning into the northwest corner of Florida or southern Alabama down around Mobile or southern Mississippi down around Biloxi, y'all. But I'm telling you,
Centered just southwest of Apalachicola. A very powerful hurricane. The top winds estimated now at 115 miles an hour. We had a data buoy very close to the eye, and the winds, sustained winds there in the last hour, 110 miles an hour with gusts up to 135. And I'd like to congratulate NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, for being able to deploy a buoy that could measure these kind of winds. A very good job indeed, and that provided us in the National Hurricane Center with some very valuable information. You can be sure of that. We have a hurricane watch out now from Cedar Key, Florida. See the eye on the eye had just come off, well, it came off the Cuban coast last night and moved toward the west-northwest, and you can follow this motion all day here. These pictures taken at about 2-hour intervals. And you can see at first the west-northwest movement, and now it's beginning to move just about straight toward the northwest. It's been doing that for several hours, and what we kind of anticipate here a little bit later on is more of a turn to the north. It's not going to do that very abruptly, but a gradual turn within the next 12 hours or so.
Pre-hurricane, Hurricane Kate, although within the last 7 hours, the central pressure has increased 6 millibars, and that is a beginning sign that it could be weakening. Here's the latest satellite picture, and you can see the eye of Hurricane Kate sitting just south-southwest of Apalachicola, Florida. Now, there still are hurricane warnings, and it's continuing to move in a northerly direction. Here it's moving a little bit to the northwest, but again, on the very latest satellite picture, you can see that it
do this. It doesn't go up, and it doesn't jump over here, and it doesn't move back over here. But I think that position is the correct one, the latest one we have. They're just straightening out the satellite in space at 10 p.m. To give you a better idea of how the system is moving, we're going to show you the storm track here beginning Monday, and you can see dot by dot. Every 2 hours, this is a different dot. You can see how...
But very, very little. It's still a dangerous storm. We're looking at the hurricane... Apalachicola. There's the Eye of Kate, about 150 miles to the south-southwest of Apalachicola. Squalls of rain coming up through Apalachicola.